I think a decade looking back, it'll be obvious that intelligence became abundant and that agency became abundant. Like the current trends we're on are just going to keep continuing, and this will be very strange. I mean, I think for the history of humanity, groups of smart people getting together towards a shared goal was the bottleneck of progress. The United States of America, in some sense, was an example of this. Like the United States of America is formed from a smart group of very smart people getting together and having a vision for the future that they wanted to enact. And that's the story of nearly every company in America, and it's the story of every YC company. And that's going to change. Like all of a sudden, the scarce resource isn't going to be intelligence or agency. I really think it's going to be vision and ambition. It's like, do you have a clear view of what you want the world to look like in the future? What is the one way in which you want to put your finger on the scale for how the future of the world will develop and how the world will look like in 5 to 10 years that it does not look like today? And do you have the ambition and drive to go through all the crap to make that happen? And AI will make that easier. Like agents and AI makes that maybe 10 times or 100 times easier than it was a decade ago. But the flip side of that is then all of a sudden you can dream bigger. I think, and the world is there's so many things that need to evolve for us to be able to fully embrace this technology. The world is really just, barely even ready for this technology today. And I think, as a builder, we have a responsibility to prepare the world, right? We have to help enterprises and governments, to adapt to this new technology. We have to help figure out how we secure the world from a biosecurity perspective or a cybersecurity perspective. We have to figure out how we're going to manage all these risks that we see with this new technology. But on the flip side, it's also the time of unprecedented opportunity for humans. We can develop new sciences. We can solve problems in health and biology that have been forever unsolved. We can build new businesses that you couldn't have even imagined before. There's new creative opportunities that couldn't have existed before. So it's just this incredible cradle of opportunity and risks that I think makes it no better time to be someone who's a builder and has a strong view of how the world should change.
Do you think the path has changed? I mean, one of the things I saw, I think Stanford, the amount of computer science majors actually dropped by some double-digit percentage. So people sort of worried, which is sort of insane to me. You still sort of need those skills to even create agents that are that good. Maybe that won't be true. I'm not really sure. How have you changed? What would you say to people in this audience right now? This is sort of a real question that people are sort of facing. Should they become more word cell and less shape rotator? What's the move? And has that changed the kind of people you're looking to hire and how you manage your teams right now at Meta?
I think systematic and rigorous thinking are still incredibly important because, the abstraction layer, I mean, I didn't used to believe that this is how this is going to play out, but it really has. The abstraction layer just keeps changing. So, when I started a company, back in my day, we wrote code. And now, I'm sure nobody here writes code anymore. That's ridiculous. But now it's about how do you orchestrate the agents together? And then it's how do you develop these organizations of agents? How do you get 1 million agents to work together well? And then it'll be, how do you get 1 trillion agents to work together well? I think that there's going to be this continued need to figure out how you structure workflows at the abstraction layer that we're going to be operating at. And that form of rigorous systematic thinking, I mean, traditionally the way this would work, in my era of starting companies, is you would start by writing code, and then you would have organizations of humans, and you'd figure out how to organize those humans. And that required systems thinking. And now maybe it's much closer to first you orchestrate the agent, then you figure out how to orchestrate these armies of agents. But I think systems thinking is never going to go out of style. So I think it's definitely a mistake to go all in on word cell. I think you need to shape rotate. But then I think the sort of much more of what's necessary going into the future is having a deeper sort of compass and philosophical view on how the world should develop. Because I think there are many, many lessons from human history around how we think civilization can go through this period. And So, humanity will change more in the next decade than it has in the past 100 years, probably. And so I think like the imperative for us to have positive visions for that and have coherent articulations of how that should develop are more important than ever.
Let's get a little more concrete. I mean, one of the things I'm curious about is like, are there sort of applications of AI that you're seeing among your friends or internal to Meta that you can talk about that are, they're sort of obvious near term, maybe people haven't figured out yet? I mean, give us some alpha.
I mean, I think there's still just like astronomical opportunity in agentic looping and figuring out how you develop systems that enable you to spend like 1,000x more or 1,000,000x more on tokens to drive an outcome in a continuous feedback loop. Like if you think about most companies are just these like large-scale feedback loops where humans are operating each of the edges. Like, companies, they get customers and they figure out how to make those customers happier. And if the customers are happier, then they spend more. And if they spend more, then you can hire more people who can then go figure out how to get more customers and make those customers happier. And that's like this, that in some sense is the feedback loop of every startup or every business. And, within that, there are micro feedback loops that exist. And I think developing agentic systems that can operate and optimize these feedback loops there's like just huge amounts of alpha there. Like I think we've seen internally at Meta cases where if you can develop the right agentic loop and you have the right eval or the right metric for the agents to optimize, you can have a swarm of agents accomplish more than like a team of 100 engineers in, very, very handily, actually, very, very easily. And so I think figuring out what the world looks like with lots of sort of this like these agentic coordination problems, I think that is like one of the most interesting problems today.
So mechanically speaking, I mean, markdown files, cron jobs, is it that, and then basically pointing the agent at enough data so that it can figure something out that maybe isn't in distribution.
Yeah, I think like figuring out, mechanically figuring out what the metric is, and then it just comes down to skills, markdown files, cron jobs,
/goal.
Yeah, /goal. Like I think it's always funny how mundane everything is once you really dig into it. But
so it's not magic, some people put a lot of magic. There's like some LinkedIn threads out there about some magic stuff.
Top advice: ignore LinkedIn.
Hey,
LinkedIn is where you get customers.
So I like to end on this, which is, you get a telegram to send to the 18-year-old version of yourself. What do you say to that person right now, given all, thank you for coming back and sharing your wisdom with this audience. What would you send in a message in a bottle to the 18-year-old version of yourself right now?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to develop your own internal compass for how you think the future will develop and have strong conviction in it, because you will get inundated with noise and people telling you shit, and like you'll be very confusing and it'll be very hard. And especially when you're young and you don't have experiences, like it can feel very difficult to have true conviction in what you believe and what you want to do. But I think that's the most important thing. Kind of as we talked about, it took a deep, deep conviction in what we were building to be able to weather the sort of storms of many years of chaos in the market, in the industry, and the people around us. And so, and then the other piece of advice I would have is try to identify what is the exponential in the world that has both the steepest curve and will go the longest. And many decades ago, this curve was Moore's law, and that probably was that was at the time like clearly the right thing to invest on. I think right now it's AI progress, but there will be more of these very steep curves in the future, and it's fine if these curves start. The starting point is very boring, or like it doesn't even seem that interesting. Like when I started working on scale, we had cat detectors in YouTube videos, and that felt it's hard to explain the story that that's like the most important technology of our time, but it was on just this like unbelievable exponential.